Well, Ty, Congresswoman Katie Porter is known as a consumer advocate who has taken on powerful corporate and government leaders using just a simple whiteboard to illustrate her arguments.
What about the out-of-pocket cost for a complete metabolic panel?
Ma'am, I'd have to pass on that as well.
You have any idea? You want to take a ballpark?
Congresswoman Katie Porter has made a name for herself, putting corporate and government leaders on the hot seat.
Dr. Redfield, do you want to know who has the coronavirus and who doesn't?
Yes.
Not just rich people, but everybody who might have the virus?
Porter's mistrust of those in power is rooted in what she witnessed growing up in Iowa in the 1980s, a farming crisis as land values plummeted.
So many people lost farms that had been in their family for generations, and there was also a sense of a loss of a future. What would we do here? There was no economy in a rural area like that ready to replace it. So we saw people, including my mom, driving 120 miles a day round trip into the nearest city to be able to work. And I think a lot of us felt like, what will happen to our town?
Years later in Harvard Law School, she heard the same questions as she worked as a research assistant for future Senator Elizabeth Warren.
A lot of Elizabeth Warren's research was about why do families come into bankruptcy? A lot of my work was about what happens afterwards. And it's often 20 and 30 years of continued financial struggle.
So let's talk about how that has informed the work that you've later done in Congress.
So when I went to Congress, one of my big goals was to make sure that we wrote rules that were fair to consumers. But so often those rules are all written to favor big companies.
Porter says that's why she's fought to keep corporate money out of politics, including her own campaigns. She says the math is pretty simple.
Look, these are some of the most profitable corporations in the world. They wouldn't make corporate PAC donations if they weren't getting a return on their investment in terms of people taking those votes. So it was really important to me right from the beginning to have consumers and workers know that I'm fighting for them.
So there are ads running saying that you've taken this PAC money that you've sworn off.
The simple truth is I've never taken corporate money, and these special interests know it. The ad has been rated false, and I think this is exactly what's wrong with our politics.
Porter says in a divided Congress, trying to pass consumer protections is only part of her work.
You need to make a commitment to the American people so they come in to get tested.
She believes oversight and enforcement can be even more powerful, like the time she went up against President Trump's CDC director.
I think you're an excellent questioner, so my answer is yes.
Excellent. Everybody in America hear that.
When I asked the CDC director to make COVID testing free, the law was already on the books to do that. So we hear people always talk about what bill they're going to pass, and that matters, believe you me. But we also don't use a lot of the rules and laws that we have. So there was already an existing law saying in a public health emergency, you can make testing free.
Congresswoman Porter is the only major candidate in this race who's raising school-aged children. Her daughter is 12 and her sons are 15 and 18 years old. And she knows it's rare for a single mom to talk about those challenges on the campaign trail.
And I think my situation, the juggling, the uncertainty of the schedule, is actually probably more like most Americans than what we traditionally have seen in politics, which is particularly women elected officials running only after their kids are in college, after their kids have married and moved out. And so I think when I talk about childcare and what this country needs to do, I get it, because I've been that person who's had that sick kid while I was at work trying to figure out how to manage.
Porter currently has her sights set on the housing crisis.
But for 20 or 30 years now, California's biggest problem has been housing, and yet it hasn't been on Washington's radar. It's the job of our next senator to change that.
And how would you do that?
So federal housing policy right now backstops every 30-year mortgage. But what it doesn't do is help people get into homes who haven't had one. It doesn't build the right kinds of homes. So look, Washington needs to make sure that we're using the power of the federal government to backstop private capital so that the private capital will build the homes we need, not just the homes that make them the most money.
Like with much of her work, Porter says in this race, she's driven by her hopes for her children's generation.
My own son told me that he doesn't think he's going to live in California when he grows up. He's 15. And I asked him why. And he said, well, Mom, I just think in California you can never afford to buy a house. These are real conversations, and they're about California's future, which is what this Senate race should be about. It's what Congress should be working on, a better future.
And before running for Congress, Katie Porter taught at UC Irvine's law school, and she currently is on a long-term leave from that job. If you'd like to see our profiles of the other 3 leading candidates for U.S. Senate, you can find all of those on the KCRA app or the website. And I just want to note, we've aired these as the campaigns have made the candidates available.